Megan Thee Stallion collaborating with K-pop artists isn't just another music collab, it's a cultural moment. K-pop is known for being clean, PG, and polished. But Megan, she's raw, real, bold, and apologetically herself. So what happens when someone like Megan enters the K-pop world? What does that say about K-pop, about its limits, and where it's heading? So today I want to talk about how these collabs are more than just giving us good beats and vibes. I'm so excited to share this, so let's dig into it. To understand why Megan's presence is so radical in K-pop, we always have to bring in a little bit more history. So first, we're going to talk about the idol system. K-pop idols aren't just dancers and singers. They're trained from a young age to be performers, models, influencers, brand ambassadors, and even role models. So their image is everything. And we know that, especially if you're a K-pop fan or if you're new to the fandom, their image is very important in order to be represented by other entities outside of them. And I was watching this documentary on Netflix called Explained K-pop, and I'm pretty sure it's by Vox. And in the documentary, one of the interviews was explaining the expectations that are placed on K-pop idols. And this is what he said. Idols must be kind and polite and never be involved with alcohol, drugs, or scandals, including love. This idea that K-pop idols are meant for fans. And I know that's a little bit choppy, especially the last part, but the last part is just saying that idols cannot be caught in scandals that involve them having a romantic partner, because it's indirectly said or known that love, or that the love that the K-pop idol has, is strictly only for fans. So taking into consideration all the expectations of K-pop idols, this is why you will never see them in scandals about drugs, alcohol, or smoking cigarettes or anything of the sort in order to maintain their image, especially with their agency. So this isn't about entertainment companies being strict. There's actually a deeper meaning and history attached to this clean-cut image. After the Korean War, the South Korean government started to begin using culture in media as tools as soft power, basically shaping how the world sees Korea through its celebrities, music, movies, and other forms of media. Maintaining a polished and idolized perception of South Korea started to become a national strategy. So when idols rose to fame, they weren't exactly representing their group or their agency or even themselves. They were representing the entire country. I feel like BTS played that exact role of not only representing HYBE or representing BTS or themselves individually. With the rise of fame that they had, they were the face of South Korea, or they are known for being the face of South Korea. During the regime of President Park Chung-hee, there was an effort to purify Korean pop culture. Music had to be patriotic, also known as goncheongayo, and in English it means healthy songs. So those were patriotic songs about Korea and just raising or boasting about Korean pride and nationality. So every song or music had to be a healthy song in order to be broadcasted. Western influences were very restricted. Mini skirts, long hair, smoking weed, and even English stage names were not allowed. There was even curfews placed on Koreans during that time. And all of these things were done in order to clean or cleanse the American culture that was present in Korean culture or Korean pop culture. And this control continued after his assassination in 1979. Even though there are less restrictions on the K-pop industry, there is still this underlying sense or knowing that idols must stray away from doing things to damage their image. And the things that can damage their image are usually tied to Western culture or Western influences. And what I find interesting is that even in the BTS 2022 Festa, RM talks about how K-pop doesn't allow artists or them to evolve and mature. In the video, he says, the K-pop system itself doesn't give you time to mature. There's no time for growth because you always have to keep doing something. And when he said that, at first, I wasn't really sure what he meant by that. But with analyzing and looking at the ways in which the K-pop industry or how certain fans respond to idols evolving themselves through their artistic expression, there's a lot of pushback on what idols can or cannot do in terms of artist expression or just artistry in general. And so it makes you wonder, when do idols get to be human? When do they get time to mess up or evolve or fully be themselves? Now I'm going to talk about K-pop and Black culture and talk a little bit about its origin story. In the 1980s and 1990s, there was a club called Moonlight that was located in Seoul. And there was a lot of American GIs that were going there, especially Black African American GIs that would go there and they would play hip hop and rap. And at the time, there were some sort of like laws or regulations placed around which clubs Koreans could come into. And so after a certain point of time, I think time has passed by, it allowed both Native Koreans and Americans to basically come into contact with each other. That cultural interaction led to this like new profound culture in hip hop and rap within Korea. Basically led the foundation to what K-pop is today. And the group credited for starting the wave of K-pop is known as seoul and boys. And they were heavily inspired by Black music and Black African American culture. And when they first like made their debut, you can say, it was like at some sort of like contest and they performed like a hip hop like rap heavy influenced song, and in the dances they had the style and everything. And at that time there were people that did not like what they saw, like the judges did not rate them well. Koreans at that time were mostly used to healthy songs, so seeing seoul and boys dancing and emulating Black African American culture, specifically, you know, with like hip hop and rap, it was like different, you know? I think it's also important to mention that some of the songs that seoul and boys made were eventually banned in Korea because they criticized Korean society. And again, the government was trying to keep the image of Korea clean and polished. But despite the pushback and even like control from the government that seoul and the boys faced, their influence stuck. And K-pop as we know it today wouldn't be what it is without Black culture. And I know that there are some people who don't like that statement, or not don't like that statement, maybe just like don't necessarily believe that statement. But what I'm trying to emphasize is that without that cultural immersion, that connection, that mixing of worlds, mixing of identity, of culture, of ethnicity, all of that, K-pop would not be what it is today. And I think it is super important to acknowledge that, to understand K-pop and why there's so much heat and I guess anger and sadness when it comes to the misusage of Black African American culture, or sometimes the stereotypical and the inappropriate usage of Black African American culture. It's okay to gain influence from Black African American culture. Everyone does. The culture has laid the foundation for a lot of things in pop culture today. Without Black African American culture, a lot of things today would not exist. But it's very important to draw influence from it appropriately, respectfully, and honoring it. Which is why when things like this happen, there's a lot of fans, including myself, who are kind of just like rolling their eyes and are kind of over the same news over and over again. You know, at first I was like, maybe it's like, you know, maybe the K-pop industry just needs like, you know, what's the word? Like a little pat on the shoulder. But like after I think about it, I'm like, okay, the Western music culture, like the American like music culture has not dealt with like cultural appropriation in a very long time. But with the K-pop industry, it's like at least twice a month or like once a month where we see K-pop idols apologizing for appropriating Black culture or for mimicking Black people in a very disrespectful, stereotypical, and harmful way. And it's like, okay, there's a need for help in the K-pop industry. If I was working in the K-pop industry and working for these agencies, I would be looking for someone to help manage these situations. But anyways, let's get back into the video. Even with all that inspiration, the industry has a history of choosing and picking which parts of Black culture it embraces. As I was researching for this video, one of the scholars I came across said that K-pop was a more cleaner and friendlier version of American music. And to bring in his exact quote, he says, "Too much illusion or representation of sex and drugs may turn off fans in Japan and the rest of Asia. The kinder, gentler version of US popular music made K-pop at once accessible and anodyne to its detractors." In other words, they wanted the rhythm, the aesthetics, and the vibes of the music without honoring the pain, the history, the suffering, and honestly the power of Black African American music and culture. Which is what makes these recent collabs with Megan very shocking, because she doesn't just represent Black culture, she brings the parts that K-pop has historically avoided. So now on to Megan Thee Stallion, you know, okay? The hot girl, the Tina Snow, like I love me some Meg, and that's some point blank period, okay? I love Meg. And one thing about Meg, she doesn't just bring the music, she brings the statements. She brings the facts. She brings her truth, and it's just so powerful. Everything about her energy is raw, it's unapologetic, it's open, it's free, it's unfiltered. Her lyrics are sexual, and that's one thing I really liked about Meg, is that she stands on the fact that she is human. She's a woman, and that she can talk about sex just in the same ways that these rap male artists talk about their private parts and sex all the time. Not only does she talk about sex, but she also talks about politics. She's very open about what she believes in and what she stands for and who she supports, you know, politics or not, like just even in the industry, period. Megan is very human, and like she's the most like human artist that I've ever seen in a very long time. She's raw, she's messy, she's beautiful, she's powerful, she's unapologetic. All of these things that make Megan Megan. And when I say that she's messy, I'm saying that she's not perfect. She talks about anxiety. She talks about the aftermath of like being shot. She talks about her story and her experience, regardless of whether it's what people want to hear or see. And especially as a Black woman in this industry, in the ways in which she's been treated, especially after the scandal with whatever his name is, her continued success and ability to stand in her truth and her power is very inspiring to me. And that's exactly why her collaborations in the K-pop space feels different. It feels refreshing, because for an industry that has prized perfection historically, Megan represents everything that pushes against that. Her music doesn't apologize for her body, for her like for sex, for her sexuality, for just her. Her music doesn't apologize for her existence and for her ability to take up space in the rap industry, which is why her taking up space in the K-pop industry is just so like enlightening. It's just so cool to see. So when Megan enters the K-pop world, whether it's through a remix with BTS or a collab with Twice or a single with RM, it's not just a collaboration, it's a collision of values. Because K-pop says be careful, be clean, be perfect, but Megan says be raw, be free, and be real. And that's why her presence matters, because personally I don't think she's an accessory in the K-pop world. She's a disruption, the kind that makes people rethink what is possible. And this isn't to not recognize or honor the fact that like artists like Umi have collaborated with idols like V from BTS. I think it's worth noting that I feel like Megan is one of the first openly sexual and like fully Black women to collaborate with like top well-known popular K-pop groups like BTS. And on top of that, I feel like she's probably one of the first Black female artists to move openly and freely in the K-pop space with this kind of mainstream visibility. She's not only just making music and making collabs, like it's not just like surface level. We've seen the worlds collide. We see that she's met BTS, that she's got RM's cute Korea. We've seen the fact that she's gone to Korea. She's immersed herself in the country. She's immersed herself also in anime and Japanese culture, but I know that's outside of Korean culture, but we not only hear it, but we see it. Like we see the community. This isn't just about music. And one thing about her, she doesn't tone herself down, doesn't make herself smaller, she doesn't change herself in these spaces. And in a system that expects women, especially idols, to be soft, kind, and polished, her presence is revolutionary. Now I'm going to talk about the rise of Black women and like K-pop collabs. So there's been Jennie and Doechii, TXT and Coi Leray, Jungkook and Latto, RM and Erykah Badu, Lisa and Tyler, and there's more. These collabs aren't just exciting, they're telling. Because for so long, Black women were either ignored, erased, or only acknowledged through imitation in K-pop. Seeing these women being invited into the conversation as themselves feels like a culture shift. And it's not just that these artists are Black, they just represent things that the K-pop industry has historically avoided or goes against what the K-pop industry has traditionally embraced. And one thing about the idols that I love to see is that like through these collaborations, I feel like we get to see a new side of these idols. I feel like there are sides of them that come out that are like very like raw, unfiltered, and maybe parts of them that they may not feel comfortable showing in a different space. But because the Western space is so known for being expressive and free, that they emulate that like feeling, or they emulate that embodiment of that, and they express that through these collaborations in the music that they're making. And while these artists in these collabs are being embraced on one side, there's still a lot of pushback and resistance on another side. And we're not just talking about fans, we're also talking about the K-pop industry and how it engages with Black culture. In my opinion, these collabs challenge the idea that K-pop and Black culture are separate, or that they exist in separate worlds, which I believe is a truth that certain K-pop fans and certain Korean agencies still have yet to acknowledge, or not even acknowledge, but just accept. Because of that lack of acknowledgement or acceptance, this creates a sort of like frustration and disconnect, especially when things like this happen. The K-pop industry is known for embracing the style, but not the substance of Black culture. And now I'm gonna talk about what Black music represents. The reason all of this matters, Megan, these collabs, and the tension that exists, is because Black music was never meant to be clean. It was never meant to be digestible or soft around the edges or palpable. Can't even say that word, but you know what I mean. Black American music was born from resistance, freedom, and expression. It historically and continues to be a tool that Black people use to uplift their truths, their identity, and their voices in a world that often and continues to deny the humanity of Black beings in general. It's messy, it's raw, it talks about poverty, it talks about police, it talks about pain, it talks about joy, it talks about sex, it talks about love, it talks about everything. It talks about the lived experience of Black African Americans in America, and that includes both the good and the ugly. And it doesn't filter itself to make people comfortable, because it was never made for white appeal or global appeal. It was made for liberation. So when Korean companies take the beat, take the style, take the aesthetic, but don't honor the legacy, the pain, the history, or the power, it becomes something different entirely. And when I say it becomes something differently entirely, I'm saying that it becomes a commodity. It becomes a trend. It becomes like just a look. It becomes something almost like slightly demeaning, or it loses its power or loses its importance. And so I reached a point where I'm very vocal and loud about the fact that K-pop not only has drawn influence from Black culture, it's also extracted elements from Black culture. That is a truth. That is a fact, okay? I am one of those K-pop fans that stand by that entirely. And probably if you're watching this video and if you think otherwise and you're mad by that, this is not the video for you. This is a video for truth, for the things that need to be said and heard in this K-pop space. And I'm saying it out of love for the industry, because I love the industry. I love Korean culture. I love what it stands for, and I love these collabs. I love it. But what I don't like is when the industry continues to police behaviors that it borrows from. So like if something's too sexual, that's inappropriate. If something's too political, that's too controversial. And that's why artists like Megan, who bring their full self, sometimes make people uncomfortable, make certain fans or consumers uncomfortable, because they remind us that Black culture was never meant to be quiet. You have to embrace and respect the substance too. Now, the last section of this video, can K-pop idols be free? The truth is, even with all the success and status and popularity the K-pop industry has gained today, there's still a limit to how free idols are allowed to be. When idols collaborate with Western artists, or even just express themselves in a little different way that goes outside of the mold of what a K-pop idol is meant to be, or what they're supposed to talk about, or just outside of the mold of what a K-pop idol is. You can feel the tension. Let's take Jungkook for example. When he dropped the single 7 featuring Big Mama, Miss Olato, these are very unapologetic Black female rappers, and out of everyone that he could have possibly chosen, he chose Latto, and he chose Latto for a reason, okay? Let me get into it. There are fans who probably love the collab, and there are fans who probably didn't like the collab. But when he dropped the explicit version of the song, and it included lyrics about sex, some Korean fans criticized him for it. One fan even accused him of trying to be like Western artists, as if Western influences meant he was abandoning some type of pure standard, or just standard that he cannot do. As if like Western influences make him impure. You know what I'm trying to say, y'all? Like him collaborating with Latto or him taking on Western influences make him impure in some way, or does it make him the idol that we have made him out to be, or the idol that we expect him to be? And I love Jungkook because this man, he stands 10 toes down on the fact that he's grown, that he's a man, okay, and that he's able to express different sides of himself that he has not been able to express or has the time to express previously. He's allowed to talk about his sexuality, and he's allowed to step outside of the expectations or perceptions that we have known him to be as the golden maknae and just the cutesy, you know, rabbit-like, or is it bunny-like? Yeah, bunny-like Jungkook that we know. He's allowed to be human. He's allowed to evolve. He's allowed to talk about things that show his evolution. And what's crazy is that even as someone as like global and like very successful as Jungkook, coming from the group BTS, the face of South Korea, he still faces backlash and criticism from fans for simply acting like an adult. And this isn't just about one song. When other K-pop idols decide to show a more sensual, raw, or rebellious side of themselves, you can almost predict that there are Western fans that are gonna be like, yes, you ate, this is it, we love it. And Korean fans might express their worry for their idols damaging their image or going too far or making them uncomfortable. And to me, it's completely heartbreaking because it really represents the amount of pressure and box that K-pop idols are expected to be in. But it shows that even now that like South Korea is well known, well established, a well respected nation, in my opinion. I feel like it's a well respected nation because not only because of K-pop and like K-dramas, but like Korea has other exports, like industries. Like they have Hongdae, they have Samsung. Like I feel like South Korea has reached a point where they are a country that's well respected, especially because they've been doing really well economically, and a lot of its cultural exports like K-pop and K-dramas has fueled that, right? Even with like the fame, the success and status of idols, there are still invisible rules on how idols are able to express themselves. And those rules are rooted in the same old system, the old system of clean cut, perfect, polished, PG image. It's all about protect the image, stay safe, and stay clean, and be what we want you to be what we expect you to be. And that is the most disheartening thing you can do to an artist or K-pop idol that you love, whether they are Western or whether they're Korean. You are literally creating a prison for them in their own career as to what they can or cannot do. And you know what? There are artists like Jungkook and Yeonjun who are going to do what they want to do. When Yeonjun came out with Gum, I didn't realize that there was like backlash that he was facing from, again, certain fans around the dance move being uncomfortable, or whether like the side of him or what he wants to do in his artistic expression, just his like artistry in general, was not what they expected him to do or be. But he also talked about how he challenged himself in the solo debut, how he did what he wanted to do. And even at an award ceremony, he was like, I know that I'm facing criticism for my dance move and for my solo debut, but I'm still going to continue to do whatever he says here. Maybe I'll put like the clip here, but he's like, I'm still gonna dance that little hip movement, and I'm still gonna do what I want to do because it's him. And people like Yeonjun and people like Jungkook and these other K-pop idols who go against the grain of what a K-pop idol is meant to be are going to lead the new generation of K-pop. And what I want to say is that real artistry is not clean. It's messy, it's emotional, it's human. It's not supposed to be political. It's not supposed to be clean. Is life PG all the time? Is Korea PG all the time? Are humans PG all the time? Are humans perfect all the time? The answer is no. We are not perfect. So why do we place that expectation and standard on K-pop idols? And the more K-pop tries to expand globally, it's going to have to confront this. Can idols truly thrive on the world stage if they can't fully and freely be themselves? And I know that we see that when idols come to America, they're swearing, they're like free, they're wild, they're like just a whole new version of themselves. It's just so refreshing. As a Western fan, it's refreshing because I'm like, oh my God, wait, this is a new side of this specific idol I've never seen before. And it's cool and it's fun. It really just reveals the humanity. That's the thing that gravitates to me as a Western fan, is that like I feel this humanness, I feel this humility. Obviously we know that K-pop idols are human, but it really feels like we're connecting or we're seeing them in a very refreshing new way, new light. And even like the twerking. I know in the previous video I talked about how I was like, I didn't know how to feel about the twerking, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm just like, why not? Why can't K-pop idols twerk, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And I think I felt very indifferent about that because of how the industry historically and continues to not appreciate and honor the substance of Black culture. There's probably a lot of K-pop idols who love Black culture, and I get that. But I feel like there needs to be a lot much more K-pop idols who maybe push back against their agency or talk more vocally about their love for Black culture and their appreciation for it and how they're educating themselves because of the love that they have for it. Megan Thee Stallion's collaboration with K-pop artists isn't just about making more good music. They're about breaking invisible walls that have existed between cultures, between expectations, between what an artist is allowed to be. They show us that there's a world where K-pop doesn't have to stay boxed into perfection, where idols can explore, express, and evolve without fear. Megan, Jungkook, RM, Yeonjun, the list goes on. All of them are showing glimpses of that future. A future where cross-cultural connection isn't seen as a threat, but as a gift. Because at the end of the day, K-pop would not be what it is without Black culture. And global music wouldn't be what it is without K-pop. These worlds were never separate. They were always meant to meet. But most importantly, if K-pop agencies truly want to connect with Western audiences and the Western world, they have to start allowing their artists to show up fully and completely. That might mean supporting solo projects that go against the mold, or protecting idols when they explore a different side of themselves, and embracing collaborations that might seem risky but are actually powerful moments of connection. I hope that K-pop idols and K-pop agencies know that there is no pressure to be perfect. There is no pressure to be perceived as perfect. Like, you are allowed to be a messy yet beautiful rising country and nation and people. I feel like it's by time that the country and the agencies take that pressure, take that burden that idols were never meant to carry, to fully be their authentic self, to fully allow them to reflect all sides of their humanity, of all sides of their artistry, and allow them to have no restrictions in terms of artist expression or artist vision, because that really takes away from their career, from their ability to evolve the K-pop industry and for us fans to connect with them. Anyways guys, this was a very long video. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. Thank you so much for hearing me out, hearing my thoughts out. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you like this video, you'll definitely like the other video essays I've done before. Anyways, thank you so much. Bye. Mwah.